The mystery schools, also known as ancient mystery religions, were secretive religious organizations in the ancient world that offered teachings, rituals, and initiation ceremonies to their members. And these schools were typically devoted to the worship of specific deities or had a strong focus on spiritual and mystical experiences. And the mysteries themselves often revolved around sacred stories, symbolism, and the pursuit of deeper spiritual knowledge, and many of these schools centered around the worship of specific deities or divine figures. For example, the Eleusinian mysteries in ancient Greece were devoted to Demeter and Persephone, while the mysteries of Isis and Osiris were prominent in ancient Egypt and later in the Greco-Roman world. And secrecy was also a defining characteristic of these schools. The teachings, rituals, and symbols were closely guarded secrets, shared only with those who had undergone initiation. The rituals, symbolism, and allegorical narratives they used were meant to convey spiritual and moral lessons, and these elements played a crucial role in helping initiates understand the deeper meaning of the mysteries. And initiation ceremonies were next to this a central aspect of these schools. Through initiation, people were brought into the inner circle of the religious group and gained access to the hidden knowledge and wisdom of the tradition. And these rituals often involved symbolic death and rebirth experiences as well. Similarly to the Horus and Khonsu we talked about as well, who also had such death and rebirth experiences. Regarding, the rites of passage we talked about in earlier episodes. And pagan mystery schools existed in various forms across different cultures and time periods. And some of the schools we'll be going to cover within the coming episodes are the Eleusinian mysteries, the cult of Isis and Osiris, which we'll be covering in this one, the Orphic and Bacchic mysteries, and the Mithraic mysteries. And all of these were the rise of Christianity in the Roman Empire, and the subsequent spread of monotheism gradually declined and faced oppression. And the most important individuation cult in ancient Egypt is the one linked to Isis. The cult of Isis also included rituals of purification and initiation. Followers would participate in purification rituals, such as bathing in the Nile, before being initiated into the cult. And initiation rituals included the recitation of secret prayers and the use of special amulets and talismans. Another important ritual in the cult of Isis was the Navigium Isidis, a procession that took place on March 5th in honor of the goddess Isis as protector of sailors and travelers. And followers would carry a ship-shaped shrine with a statue of Isis in it through the streets. And the mysteries of Isis were a set of religious rituals and ceremonies that were dedicated to the goddess Isis, who was one of the most popular deities in ancient Egypt and also later in ancient Rome. And the rituals were believed to have been based on the story of the goddess's search for her dead husband Osiris and their mourning for him, where the rituals were also believed to have been a way of gaining access to the afterlife and achieving immortality. The mysteries of Isis were held in temples and were typically only open to initiates who had gone through a period of purification and had demonstrated their worthiness to participate. And the initiates were usually required to take an oath of secrecy and would participate in rituals such as fasting, purification, and reenactments of the myth of Isis and Osiris, where the rituals included different stages of initiation and were believed to convey spiritual enlightenment, purification, and moral regeneration, as well as providing a deeper understanding of the mysteries of life, death, and the afterlife. And the rituals were also believed to have healing powers, and many people would participate in the rituals seeking physical and psychological healing, where Isis was also honored in the Aisia, a festival that commemorated the death and resurrection of Osiris. This festival included the reenactment of the myth of Osiris, rituals of purification, and the use of sacred music and dance to evoke a sense of possession by the goddess. And there is a link between Osiris and vegetation deities, which stems from the ancient Egyptian belief that the life cycle of plants and crops mirrored the cycle of life and death. And in this belief, Osiris was seen as the god who brought fertility and life to the land. Thus, he was often depicted with green skin, symbolizing the fertility of the earth. And in Egyptian agriculture, the annual flooding of the Nile River was crucial to the growth of crops, and the floodwaters deposited fertile soil on the river banks, providing the necessary nutrients for crops to grow. And Osiris was believed to control the flooding of the Nile and the growth of crops, making him an important figure in Egyptian agriculture. Much like Cybele and Attis, from a Jungian perspective, the goddess Isis can be seen as a symbol of the Great Mother archetype. And this archetype represents the nurturing and life-giving aspect of the feminine, and is associated with the idea of the source of all life, as well as the protection of the dead. And in the myth of Osiris, the search for and restoration of Osiris's body can be seen as a representation of the integration of the fragmented self. And through the ritual reenactment of the myth, the followers of Isis would experience a psychological process of integration and healing. The purification and initiation rituals in the cult of Isis can be seen as a symbolic representation of the process of individuation, where the individual strives to integrate the unconscious aspects of their personality. Where the use of amulets and talismans can be seen as symbols of protection and guidance on this journey. And further, the Navigium Isidis procession and the Icea festival can also be interpreted from a Jungian lens as symbolic representations of the journey of the self. The procession, with its ship-shaped shrine and statue of Isis, can be seen as a symbol of the person's journey towards self-discovery and integration, where the festival with its rituals of purification and possession can be seen as a symbol of the person's confrontation with their unconscious and their integration of the fragmented aspects of the self, where the Horus myth is a central myth in ancient Egyptian religion that is also tied to this. It tells the story of Horus, the god of the sky and the son of Osiris and Isis. And Osiris, the god of the underworld, was murdered by his brother Seth, who then claimed the throne of Egypt for himself. Isis, the mother of Horus, was determined to avenge her husband's death and raise Horus to be the ruler of Egypt. Horus and Seth engage in a great battle, with Horus ultimately emerging victorious. And as a result of his victory, Horus becomes the ruler of Egypt and the god of the sky, while Seth is relegated to the desert. And the story of Horus also has a cosmic significance as well, with Horus representing the triumph of order over chaos and light over darkness. The myth also plays a role in the royal succession, with the pharaohs of Egypt often identifying themselves as the living Horus and the rightful ruler of Egypt. In addition, the myth of Horus also has a strong solar aspect as well, with Horus often being associated with the sun and the light, and Set representing the darkness and chaos. And this aspect of the myth is also linked to the daily cycle of the sun, with the daily battle between Horus and Set representing the daily cycle of sunrise and sunset. And from a Jungian perspective, the conflict between Set and Horus can be understood as a manifestation of the archetypal struggle between the shadow and consciousness. The shadow represents the unconscious and repressed aspects of the self, and in this case, it can be seen as embodied by Set and his association with chaos, violence, and the desert. Consciousness, on the other hand, represents the conscious aspects of the self and can be seen as embodied by Horus and his association with order, protection, and the sky. So the conflict between Set and Horus can be seen as a struggle for control over the individual's mind, with the outcome of the conflict symbolizing the triumph of the self over the shadow and the integration of unconscious and conscious aspects of the self. Horus was then also a highly important ancient Egyptian deity as well, who played a variety of roles, most notably as the god of kingship and the sky, and he was worshipped by the ancient Egyptians for many centuries, from at least the late prehistoric period until the Ptolemaic kingdom and Roman Egypt. The Egyptians referred to the god Apollo as Horus in their own language. However, Plutarch adds more detail to this tradition, stating that the Horus whom the Egyptians equated with the Greek Apollo was actually Horus the Elder, who is distinct from Horus the Younger, the son of Osiris and Isis. Horus the Elder being seen as the good counselor of the pharaoh, where he is a symbol of the self, with his eyes as a sun and moon. And Horus's role in the divine triad with Osiris and Isis also reflects the idea of a complementary balance between the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine. Yet, when it comes to Horus, another lesser-known Egyptian figure is also as important. This would be Khonsu, and he was the ancient Egyptian god of the moon. His name means traveler, and may be related to the perception of the moon's nightly journey across the sky. And along with Thoth, he was responsible for measuring the passage of time. Khonsu played a vital role in the creation of new life in all living beings. At Thebes, he was part of a divine family triad, the Theban triad, with Mut as his mother and Amun as his father. And Khonsu also had the titles Embracer, Pathfinder, Defender, and Healer. And Khonsu as the god of the moon represents the cyclical, ever-changing aspect of time and life, and can be seen as an archetypal representation of the dynamic and unpredictable aspects of life. And Horus's association with the sun and Khonsu with the moon, as much as Horus having the sun and moon as his eyes, links both of these figures together. They are also often connected as divine twin figures. Horus on the level of both sun and moon, representing the self, and at the level of Horus as sun and Khonsu as a moon, consciousness and unconsciousness. And this idea of Horus as the sun and Khonsu as the moon reflects the ancient Egyptians' understanding of the importance of balance and harmony between different aspects of the self. In Exodus, his mother, the goddess Isis, was believed to be the mother of all life and the protector of the dead, playing the role of a sovereignty goddess, and her cult was particularly popular in Egypt, where she was the wife of Osiris, the god of the underworld. And Isis was often depicted as a woman with cow horns and a solar disk on her head, holding a sistrum and ankh, which happened after her cult merged with the one from Hathor, where her followers believed that she had the power to heal the sick and bring the dead back to life.